cold pines. Even the name sent a shiver down your spine. It was a place where the air seemed to carry whispers, and the trees stood like silent sentinels, guarding secrets that were never meant to be uncovered. Nestled deep in the mist-choked valleys of the Pacific Northwest, it was the kind of town where secrets took root and flourished in the shadows. The fog that blanketed the town seemed to seep into the very souls of its inhabitants, cloaking their lives in mystery and unease. The locals whispered of strange occurrences, unexplained lights in the woods, and an unsettling feeling that something was always watching. Stories of eerie encounters and ghostly apparitions were passed down through generations, each tale more chilling than the last. Most dismissed it as folklore, the ramblings of a community starved for excitement. They laughed off the stories, attributing them to overactive imaginations and the isolating effects of the dense forest that surrounded them. But for one man, the legends would soon become a terrifying reality. His nights would be haunted by the very tales he once thought were mere fabrications. His name was Thomas, a quiet, unassuming librarian, living a life as ordinary as the Dewey Decimal System itself. Thomas had always found solace in the predictability of his work, the orderly rows of books providing a comforting escape from the chaos of the outside world. That all changed one moonless night on a stretch of deserted highway known only as Devil's Pass. The road was infamous for its treacherous curves and the unsettling feeling that seemed to hang in the air like a heavy fog.
I was returning home from a conference, my mind awash with the comforting predictability of cataloging systems. The rhythmic hum of the engine and the familiar feel of the steering wheel in my hands were almost hypnotic. As I rounded a bend, my headlights flickered, then died, plunging me into absolute darkness. The sudden loss of light was jarring, as if the night itself had swallowed me whole. A wave of unease washed over me. This was no ordinary power outage. The darkness felt alive, pressing in on me from all sides, making it hard to breathe. The silence was heavy, thick with an unnatural stillness that felt almost sentient. It was as if the forest itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Then I saw them. Lights. Not the warm, inviting glow of civilization, but cold, pulsating orbs, hovering silently in the distance. They moved with an eerie grace, casting long, ghostly shadows that danced across the trees. My heart pounded in my chest as I watched the lights draw closer. I gripped the steering wheel with trembling hands, my mind racing with questions and fears. What were those lights? Who or what was controlling them? Summoning every ounce of courage, I stepped out of the car. The fog seemed to thicken around me, muffling my footsteps as I made my way towards the lights. Each step felt like a journey into the unknown, the air growing colder with every breath. As I ventured deeper into the forest, the lights grew brighter, their cold glow illuminating the path ahead. Shadows moved in the fog, shapes that seemed almost human, but not quite. The feeling of being watched intensified, sending chills down my spine. Finally, I reached a clearing. The lights hovered above, casting an otherworldly glow on the scene. The silence was deafening, broken only by the sound of my own ragged breathing. I knew in that moment that my life would never be the same again. They pulsed with an eerie, otherworldly luminescence, casting long, skeletal shadows that danced and twisted in the darkness. The forest seemed alive, each tree a silent sentinel, each shadow a lurking menace. The lights were not just illuminating the forest, they were breathing life into it, making it a living, breathing entity that watched and waited. Fear, primal and suffocating, gripped my throat. It was a fear that went beyond the rationale, a fear that spoke to the most ancient parts of my brain, the parts that remembered when humans were prey, not predators. My heart raced, each beat a thunderclap in the silence. I fumbled for my phone, the cold metal slick against my clammy skin. My hands shook so violently that I almost dropped it. The screen lit up, a small beacon of hope in the overwhelming darkness, but my hope was short-lived. No signal. Of course not. In this forsaken place, technology was as useless as a lifeline made of sand. I was cut off from the world, isolated in a bubble of terror that seemed to grow tighter with each passing second. I was stranded, alone, in the heart of what felt like a nightmare. The car, my only sanctuary, felt like a flimsy barrier against the encroaching darkness. The forest loomed around me, an impenetrable wall of shadows and whispers. As I stepped out of my car, the silence was shattered. It was as if the forest had been holding its breath, waiting for me to make a move. The sudden noise was a jarring contrast to the oppressive quiet, a reminder that I was not alone. A sound, like 1,000 whispers converging into a single deafening roar, filled the air. It was a cacophony of voices, each one distinct yet part of a greater whole. The noise was overwhelming, a tidal wave of sound that threatened to drown me. It was a chorus of chaos, a symphony of madness that seemed to claw at the edges of my sanity. I clamped my hands over my ears, but it did little to muffle the noise. It was inside my head, reverberating through my very bones. I stumbled back, my heart pounding against my ribs like a frantic drummer. Each beat was a desperate plea for escape, a futile attempt to outrun the terror that surrounded me. My breath came in short, ragged gasps, each one a struggle. The lights pulsed closer, their cold, hypnotic glow searing itself onto my retinas. They moved with a purpose, a malevolent intelligence that seemed to mock my fear. Each pulse was a heartbeat, a reminder that I was at the mercy of forces beyond my understanding. I wanted to run, to scream, to do anything but stand there frozen in terror. My mind screamed at my body to move, but it was as if I was rooted to the spot, held in place by an invisible force. But my body refused to obey. I was a prisoner in my own skin, trapped in a nightmare from which there was no waking. The terror was a living thing, wrapping itself around me like a suffocating shroud. I was paralyzed, trapped in the gaze of something ancient and unknowable. It was a presence that defied comprehension, a force that existed beyond the boundaries of reality. Its gaze was a weight pressing down on me, crushing my will to resist. Then, as quickly as it began, the sound stopped. The silence was a shock, a sudden void that left my ears ringing. It was as if the forest had exhaled, releasing me from its grip. The lights vanished, leaving behind only the echo of my racing pulse and the chilling certainty that I had looked into the abyss. The darkness closed in, a suffocating blanket that seemed to swallow the world. I was alone. But the memory of the lights and the whispers lingered, a haunting reminder of the night the lights died.
The following days were a blur. Thomas tried to piece together the fragments of his memory to make sense of the unexplainable. Had he imagined the whole thing? Was it a stress-induced hallucination? A desperate attempt to rationalize the irrational? He sought answers, consulting experts, chasing whispers of the unexplained.
It sounds like you've been through a traumatic event, Thomas. The mind can play tricks on us, especially when we're under extreme stress.
Dr. Emily Carter, a renowned psychiatrist, listened patiently to his story, her brow furrowed in concern.
There are forces in this world beyond our understanding, Thomas. Forces of darkness that prey on the vulnerable.
Father Michael, the town's priest, offered a different perspective. He spoke of spiritual warfare, of demons and the devil's influence. Thomas, a man of science and logic, found it hard to reconcile his beliefs with the priest's words, yet a part of him couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister was at play. As the days bled into weeks, Thomas's initial terror gave way to a strange sense of purpose. The fear that had once gripped his heart began to transform into a burning curiosity, a need to uncover the truth behind the mysterious encounter that had shattered his mundane existence. He felt chosen, singled out by whatever he had encountered that night. It was as if the universe had plucked him from obscurity and thrust him into the heart of a cosmic mystery. The lights had shown him something, a glimpse behind the veil of reality, and he was determined to understand its meaning. The lights had shown him something, a glimpse behind the veil of reality, and he was determined to understand its meaning. Each night, he would find himself drawn to the same spot where the encounter had occurred, staring up at the sky, hoping for another sign, another clue to unravel the enigma that had become his obsession.
I devoured books on the paranormal, on UFOs, on ancient myths and legends. My days were spent in libraries and bookstores, my nights on the internet, scouring forums and websites for any scrap of information that might shed light on my experience, on ancient myths and legends. I immersed myself in the stories of gods and monsters, of celestial beings and otherworldly visitors. Each tale, each fragment of lore seemed to bring me a step closer to understanding the truth. I scoured the internet for accounts similar to my own, finding solace in the shared experiences of other witnesses. There were others out there, people who had seen the same lights, felt the same fear, and been left with the same burning questions. We were connected by a thread of mystery, a shared sense of having glimpsed something beyond the ordinary. I was no longer just Thomas, the quiet librarian. My life had taken on a new dimension, a new purpose. I was a seeker of truth, a messenger of the unknown. I was a messenger, a conduit to a realm beyond human comprehension. The weight of this realization was both exhilarating and terrifying. I felt a responsibility to share what I had learned, to warn others of the darkness that lurked just beyond the periphery of human perception.
His life, once so ordinary, now felt charged with a sense of cosmic significance. Every moment, every action, seemed imbued with a deeper meaning. He was no longer just living. He was on a quest, a journey to uncover the hidden truths of the universe. He started a blog, sharing his story with the world, hoping to find others who had looked into the abyss and lived to tell the tale. The blog became a beacon for those who had experienced the unexplainable, a place where they could share their stories and find comfort in the knowledge that they were not alone. He organized meetings, gatherings of believers and skeptics alike, all drawn to the enigma of Cold Pines and the strange lights that haunted its outskirts. These meetings became a sanctuary for those seeking answers, a place where they could discuss their experiences and theories without fear of ridicule. He became a beacon for the lost and the curious, a self-proclaimed prophet warning of the darkness that lurked just beyond the periphery of human perception. His passion and conviction inspired others to join him in his quest, to seek out the truth and confront the unknown. Together they formed a community of seekers, united by their shared experiences and their desire to uncover the mysteries of the universe.